What's the worst date you've been on? NSFW. Took her to a quiet bar and grill, ordered a beer, and listened to her lecture me about how I'm using beer to hide/deal with my insecurities. I ordered a second and a third. Don't date your mom, or any woman that acts like she's your mom. I went on a buff date with a girl. The setup was fun. We decided not to talk at all before we met. Kinda like a real date would go before the internet. So we were both excited. Set up to meet at an old bar in the city. I got there early. She arrived 5 minutes later. We talked. She suggested we eat. I wasn't super hungry, but got something. She drank about 4 drinks. During conversation, we had a lot in common. Worked at the same place about a month apart. Same movies, music, etc. Then at the end, I ask for the check. She says she needs to go to the bathroom, and then gets up and straight leaves. Just right out the front door. Adios. I went back to ask her why she did that. She deleted her account. I'm not entirely sure she wasn't just a very hungry ghost. A girl reached out to me for a date. When she came to the date, she showed up, waved at me, left, then called me. Apparently she had put me in her phone as someone else and scheduled the date with me thinking I was that other person. We ate together anyway. Yikes. Was that as awkward a meal as I'm imagining? Yes. Yes it was. Lots of forced laughter. He brought me to Titty Bar. It was my very first date. Went on a date with a wealthy bigger woman who was used to getting her way with men. We had become friends over the past few weeks due to mutual friends and hanging out at social gatherings. She asked me to go drinking with her, so I said sure. When we got to this little hole in the wall bar, I was then introduced to all her drinking friends. I'm assuming the people that frequent this bar. Anyway, she started trying to aggressively make out with me in front of her friends and talk about how shy I was being. After I told her I didn't feel comfortable, she then, in front of the whole bar, yells, "How much weight do I need to lose for you to date me?" I got the impression I was no longer welcome at the bar. If everyone's looks could kill, I would have died 100 times. I left quickly. I went out with a guy from Tinder who turned out to be legitimately crazy. He regaled me with stories of how he assaulted police officers, burned his arm to impress girls, spent significant time in a psych ward, and lost his virginity to an overweight prostitute. He also told me that my eating disorder made him feel better about himself because it made me crazier than he was, and that I had obvious acne scars. After our disaster date, he wouldn't stop contacting me, even going so far as asking me to stay in a rented house with him in another city and claiming I had ruined his entire year. I deleted Tinder immediately after that. I was volunteering at a Master Studies orientation market when we met. Cute girl. Had a nice chat. Set up a date. I think I was 22 or 23 at this time. When the day comes I pick her up at her place. Turns out she lives with her mom and they have a rather childish argument about whether or not her bicycle lights are working, but alright. Moms will be moms. We have dinner and talk about this and that. She tells me about her horse. I tell her about when I tried horseback riding as a kid and we laugh. She talks about an actor who is so cute. So instead of taking a walk downtown after dinner we decide to go see the latest movie with that actor because why not? It's kind of chilly anyway. During the intermission we talk about music and she hasn't heard of any of the bands I listen to, which is odd because they are all basically evergreen pop and rock acts. I ask her about the music she likes and she mentions a whole bunch of current boy bands. I'm starting to have a horrible hunch and ask her a few more questions before I finally give in to that sinking feeling and ask her the question. How old are you? Turns out she's 14 and a half. The guy behind us just about chokes on his popcorn as he realizes what's happening. Turns out she wasn't at the orientation market to find a master study. She was tagging along with her older sister who I never met or heard about. Perfectly lovely person, but I felt so stupid. Went on a date with my then wife. After we ordered food she said this isn't really what I wanted. I thought she meant the restaurant. She slid her ring across the table and left. Her mom was waiting outside for her. I got home, and the apartment was clear of all her things, except the divorce papers. Edit to at, this was 16 years ago. I'm now remarried to my dream girl. 10 years this November. 2 adorable kids and a great life. Thank you all for being cool. Back in college. This really hot girl in several of my classes starts flirting with me, laughing at my jokes, asking me for help with the assignments, complimenting me. After a few days, she asks what I'm doing after class. She needs to do a favor for her aunt. Then we can have dinner and see what happens. I'm all over that. I drive her to her aunt's house. She introduces me to another guy that's already there and tells him I'm there to help. He shows me what we are doing. Replacing a flight of stairs going up to her kitchen door. The ground floor was the garage and storage. Never done anything like this. But she's hot. So I'm game. She disappears after we get started. About 30 minutes in. We've got the stairs assembled. It was a kit. And the other guy knew what he was doing. And wrestle it into place. We hadn't spoken too much beyond instructions. So I ask, so how do you know Julie? Thinking he's a cousin or something. Oh, we've been dating for about a year. I freeze. He looks at me. Oh, shit, man. I'm sorry. I thought you were just a friend from school. She's done this before. But she promised me she'd stop. He goes on a little about how she likes to manipulate guys to prove she's still got it. At one point he says I'd leave her. But the sex is incredible. I make some remark about twisting the knife. And we both have a laugh over it. He was actually pretty cool about it and insisted I take $60 for helping. She came back with McDonald's for me. Drove home alone. She hardly spoke to me in class after that, which was fine with me. Anytime I saw her flirting with a guy after that, I'd quietly warn them off. Girl was bored with me. Sees an old flame of hers by the bar, and within about 20 minutes, they were making out. I was standing right there. I had just been fired from my job, moved back in with my parents, and hadn't been on a date with a woman in months. Not exactly the highlight of my life. When I was 17, I went on a series of 2 of the worst dates I have ever experienced. My friends and I went to a football game in a big group, and there was a guy in the group who I had not met before. He seemed kinda cute, but I didn't interact with him. After the game, my friend told me that this guy, Jake, thought I was really hot and wanted my number. Being 17 and dumb, I gave it to him. He set up a date to go see a movie and grab dinner. We get there, and the first words he says are, "You're going to have to pay for the tickets." Okay. Not a big deal, but kind of weird. He refused to talk to me or hold hands during the movie because I hate PDA. On the way out of the movie, he suggested we take his car to dinner. We ended up making out in his car, at which point a security guard came by and asked us to leave. I got out of his car, and he sped off before I could even get out of the way. Didn't answer his phone or contact me regarding dinner. Figured whatever. He's weird and doesn't like me, but I'm only out $20 and 2 hours of my life. 2 weeks late, the friend that had set us up invites me on a blind double date. I say sure, guess I didn't learn my lesson and meet her at a fair. My date was Jake. She pulled me aside and told me that he really liked me, but was too shy to contact me after our awkward date. She asked me to give him another chance. He spent the entire date asking me when we could have sex, asking me how many dates I required before having sex, and what counted as a date. He asked me if he would be allowed to touch my boobs today, and if so, would it be over the shirt or under? I told him I wasn't super comfortable doing anything with him until we got to know each other a bit more, at which point, he got very weird and said he had to use the bathroom. He didn't go to the bathroom. He just left and turned his phone off. For the next several weeks, he would send me very graphic texts daily. When I didn't reply, he would follow with a "Hey, how are you? We should hang out again" text. When I didn't reply to that, he would send me a barrage of insults every single day. 4 weeks. I never replied. I can handle awkward or weird dates, but the worst are honestly where there's no conversation. I scored a date with a very good looking girl. but her body was the only thing interesting about her. She didn't have any hobbies, education or personality, and was completely stone-faced. We were at an Italian restaurant and she ordered an apple. What? After an hour of forced conversation I drove her back home. She invited me up, but I went home instead. To this day I'm convinced I was either speaking to an alien, or would have woken up in a bathtub with my kidney missing. Definitely one of my worst has to be a Tinder date with a guy who looked and sounded like he was normal enough to warrant meeting him IRL. After a fairly expensive dinner, he gets offended when I don't pay the full bill. I'm a student. He's a banker, but finally agrees to split the bill. I stupidly then agreed to go for a few drinks as it was still fairly early, where he proceeds to tell me his problems with his ex. How he doesn't like a girl who's independent, as they should be waiting at home for you to cuddle, not doing their own thing. That he likes his girls chunky, after I was talking to him about some good runs in the area we live in. I'm also fairly slim, and that he couldn't deal with someone who didn't understand that his career was his only priority in life. At that point, I excused myself and said I had an early start the next day so had to leave. On my walk home, I receive a message from him saying wish I'd gotten a goodbye kiss. You looked good enough to eat. Gobble gobble. Never replied back. Early college first date. She wanted to go to the horse racing track for the day. When we arrived, she took me to her family's box seats, and they were all there, waiting for us. She knew they'd be there, but didn't tell me. It felt like an ambush. It was a very long, tedious day of races and betting, followed later by a seemingly endless dinner at her parents' house where they talked exclusively about gambling, horse racing and high stakes betting. I couldn't wait to go home and get away from all of them. I've told this on Reddit before, but it qualifies. I was at work and a stunningly beautiful woman walked up and asked me out. I was in college, and she was probably 25 to 26. It was an amazing date. She was funny and cool, and insisted on paying for everything. At the end of our meal she looked at me and said I promised myself I wasn't going to duck you, but I've changed my mind. Back at her place the sex was like porn sex, but something was off. She was very particular about positions and where we positioned ourselves. She also described in a very loud voice everything we were doing. By the time we were finished I was creeped out. I knew something was up. On the drive home I badgered her until she admitted that her fiancé had been watched us the whole night, from the bar in the restaurant and through the window when we had sex. Edit, to answer some questions. I don't have a problem with their lifestyle. Let your freak flag fly, man. My issue was with the fact that they didn't bother to tell me what was going on. I never spoke to her again after that night. I saw her a few years later at a football game, and she was with a guy. She and I made eye contact and smiled, but didn't speak. Doesn't matter. Had sex. I was seeing this girl on and off. A ref WB deal. She told me she had a hotel room for some cheerleader event she was coaching at the time and I should come out and keep her company. This is in King of Prussia, PA. I live in NJ. Offer a fun hotel sex, but a bit of a drive? Sure. I'm in. Drive the couple hours out there to meet her. Meet her in the hotel lobby. We go up to the room. Her dad is in the room. Because this is a cheerleading competition for her little sister, her entire family is there. Her father has to go into work as a firefighter, so he's leaving her the hotel room. He's carrying his overpass bag out as I'm carrying mine in. Unbelievably obvious as to what is about to go down. Never felt so uncomfortable. It was the first time we'd met, and the guy made 5 rape jokes in less than 10 minutes, and then insisted that I lighten up. Apostrophe. Technically it wasn't a date. She was from Tinder, and we texted for about a good month. Then I guess I finally convinced her to come over and hook up with me when my parents were away on a vacation. Long story short, my frenulum ripped. Had to go to the I didn't get off, and she doesn't want to see me again. In college I went out for a going away party for a friend. There, I met some chick that a bunch of my friends know. We got pretty trashed and had fun. Did shots, danced, did shots, sang karaoke, did jajabums, Chatted while smoking cigarettes on the patio. Did shots. Smoked a bowl on the patio. Drank beers. Did more shots. Really liked each other. So we exchanged numbers before leaving. And said we'd go out next week. Now, 20 minutes after leaving I literally passed out and landed on my face. Because I was ducking trashed. So I was in prime condition this night. This girl knew I liked to party. As only college kids can. And horrifies me now, how did I survive? So, next week comes. And we line up a date. Since we don't know each other super well, we'll go to that same bar. Where a bunch of mutual friends will be. We sit with them on the patio. And we chat. She's cute. But, that's all she has going for her. I find out we are absolute polar opposites. Her dad's a preacher. And she loves Jesus. And she doesn't like art. And she's waiting for marriage. And she doesn't like fishing. And hunting is cruelty. And the outdoors are icky. And I'm getting one word answer saying she doesn't like anything I talk about. While she doesn't even try to make conversation. It's so awkward that our mutual friends are bailing. Shifting further and further away from us. Until there are only 3 of us left in our section and everyone else is on the other side of the patio. After about 45 minutes. I decide I'm going to need like 8 more drinks. To make it through this, I ask if she needs another drink and go inside to the bar. While I'm waiting, I say, nope, duck it, and I leave. I bail right out the back door. I don't even care. I don't say goodbye. I just leave and delete her number from my phone on the way out. I stagger to a friend's house, explain that I was on the shittiest date ever, and proceed to get blackout drunk. 3 days later, a mutual friend who we'll call Kevin says, man, that date was pretty brutal, but it wasn't right how she treated you. I know, man. Right? Yeah. I can't believe you went to get her another drink. And she left before you got back. That was really shitty. That's right. This date went so poorly we both bailed without telling the other person. And neither of us ever tried to contact the other one again. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.